Every night, I can hear a little girl crying in the attic of my new home. When I investigated the noise, the truth of its origins was much darker than I thought. Life had been throwing curveballs at me lately. A messy breakup with Sasha, a strained relationship with my folks, and financial struggles that made affording rent an impossible feat. That's when I stumbled upon a glimmer of hope on a shady website called Dark Realty Homes. A creepy name for a real estate platform, but the rent for the old, seemingly abandoned house was only $100 a month. Desperate times call for desperate measures, and I couldn't resist the allure of affordability. Upon moving in, my gut instincts kicked in, warning me that this place wasn't just old, but had a strange aura about it. The walls creaked, the floorboards groaned, and the air was perpetually musty. I'd complained to the landlord, Michael, about the creaks and the eerie ambiance, but he was dismissive, telling me to be grateful for such a cheap deal. It was like he reveled in my discomfort, a grin hidden behind his curt responses. One evening, as I lay on the creaky bed trying to make sense of my life, I heard it. A faint crying, like that of a little girl. Chills ran down my spine. It wasn't a sound that belonged in an old, abandoned house. Against my better judgment, I decided to investigate. The attic entrance was a rickety hatch in the ceiling. As I opened it, the crying abruptly ceased. It was as if the unseen entity knew I had breached its space. Armed with a flashlight, I cautiously ascended into the dark abyss. The attic was a chaotic labyrinth of abandoned furniture covered in dusty sheets. My flashlight flickered, casting eerie shadows across the forgotten relics. I searched every nook and cranny, hoping to catch a glimpse of something paranormal. The oppressive darkness and an unshakable feeling of being watched pushed me to retreat hastily. The next night, after a grueling day at work, the crying returned, louder and more persistent. I tried drowning it out with music through my AirPods, but the sobbing cut through, growing in intensity. I couldn't ignore it any longer. Frustrated and exhausted, I called Michael to complain. But, late into the night, my calls went unanswered. Michael, the ever-dismissive landlord, chose to ignore my pleas for help. Left with no alternative, I was torn between investigating the attic again or accepting the eerie fate that awaited me. In the dimly lit room, surrounded by the oppressive silence, I contemplated my next move. The unsettling feeling of being watched and the haunting cries lingered in the air. As the weight of uncertainty pressed down on me, I wondered if I should confront the mysterious presence in the attic or continue my uneasy coexistence with the unknown. The decision loomed over me, casting a shadow on my newfound sanctuary, a cheap house with a high price. The following night, I found myself standing before the attic entrance once more, wrestling with the decision to confront the inexplicable cries or resign to a sleepless existence. The air felt charged with anticipation as I hesitantly pushed open the hatch. As the entrance creaked open, the crying ceased yet again. It was as if the attic harbored secrets that only unveiled themselves in the shadows. Armed with determination and my feeble flashlight, I stepped into the darkness. The attic seemed even more foreboding than before. Abandoned trinkets and forgotten memories lay scattered across the dusty floor. The air was thick, suffused with an otherworldly energy that sent shivers down my spine. As I cautiously advanced, the sobbing resumed, echoing through the desolate space. "Hello?" I called out, my voice wavering. The crying persisted, seeming to surround me, bouncing off the decaying walls. I couldn't pinpoint its source. In my quest for answers, I stumbled upon an old, weathered trunk, tucked away in a corner. My curiosity took hold, and I cautiously opened it. Inside, I discovered a collection of worn-out children's toys and faded photographs. Faces of a family long forgotten stared back at me. A sudden gust of wind swept through the attic, extinguishing my flashlight. The room plunged into complete darkness, and the crying intensified. Panic gripped me as I fumbled to reignite the flashlight. In that moment, a faint whisper seemed to pierce the air, speaking words that sent chills down my spine. "Help me." I recoiled, unsure whether the plea was real or a figment of my overactive imagination. The attic was no longer just a space. It was a portal to a realm of unanswered questions and unresolved sorrows. Driven by a mix of fear and compassion, I pressed on. Following the sound of the crying, it led me to a hidden corner, obscured by dusty sheets. As I peeled them away, my flashlight revealed a small, forgotten alcove with a decaying rocking chair. And there, in the dim light, stood the apparition of a young girl. Her eyes were hollow, filled with a silent plea for release. I felt a surge of empathy and a strange connection, as if her sorrow echoed my own. Without words, she beckoned me to follow her gaze towards an old, dusty photograph. It depicted a family, a father, a mother, and the little girl, their smiles forever frozen in time. Recognition struck me like a lightning bolt. The family in the photograph was the previous owner of this haunted haven. The girl's spirit had lingered, trapped in the memories of her former life. With newfound purpose, I pledged to help her find peace. The attic, once a place of mystery and fear, now held a shared journey of healing. Armed with determination and a connection that transcended the boundaries of the living and the dead, we set out to unravel the untold story of the house. Little did I know that my decision to confront the unknown would lead me down a path of discovery, redemption, and a connection that defied the boundaries of the living and the afterlife. The cheap rent had come at a cost, but it was a price I was willing to pay for a chance at redemption and closure for the restless spirit that haunted my newfound home. With newfound determination, I embarked on a journey to unravel the dark secrets that bound the little girl's spirit to the desolate attic. As I delved into the house's history, a chilling revelation emerged. The family in the photograph had met a tragic end at the hands of none other than the sinister landlord, Michael. Haunted by the memories of my own struggles and heartbreaks, I felt a strange connection to the lost soul. The crying girl became a spectral companion, guiding me through the labyrinth of deception and malevolence that shrouded the old house. In the process, I discovered the twisted truth. Michael, the callous landlord, was responsible for the demise of the innocent family. The girl, along with her parents, had fallen victim to his malevolent deeds. The attic, a silent witness to their suffering, became purgatory of unfinished business and lingering grief. Armed with this knowledge, a plan began to form in my mind. I couldn't let the tormented spirits remain trapped, shackled to the painful memories of their untimely demise. It was time to confront Michael, the puppet master behind the spectral tragedy. Late one night, as the house groaned under the weight of its haunted history, I lured Michael into the attic. The crying girl's ethereal presence loomed in the shadows, and the air became charged with an otherworldly energy. Michael, oblivious to the impending reckoning, followed me hesitantly. As we entered the attic, the atmosphere thickened. The crying girl's sobs grew louder, resonating through the haunted space. Michael's face contorted in fear as the truth unraveled before him. The ghostly figure of the little girl materialized, her eyes filled with a mix of sorrow and anger. The room trembled with the intensity of the emotions that had festered for years. With sudden force, the girl reached out to Michael, pulling him into the spectral realm. The attic became a vortex of swirling shadows as the tormented spirit sought retribution. Michael's screams echoed through the void, and in an instant, he was dragged into the abyss, vanishing into a hellish dimension that awaited him. Silence enveloped the attic as the portal closed, leaving behind a purified space. The oppressive energy that had plagued the house for years lifted, and the atmosphere felt lighter. The crying girl's spirit, having found closure, faded away with a gentle whisper of gratitude. As I stood alone in the attic, the weight of the past seemed to dissipate. I glanced down to see a set of keys on the ground, the keys to the house that Michael once wielded. It was a symbolic transfer of ownership, and with it, a sense of responsibility and a newfound purpose. Over the years, I meticulously renovated the house, erasing the traces of its haunted past. The walls, once witnesses to tragedy, were now adorned with fresh paint and warm memories. The creaks and groans transformed into the comforting sounds of a home. As I walked through the now serene rooms, I couldn't help but feel a twinge of sadness. The crying girl, my spectral companion, was gone. The house was now mine, free from the malevolent presence that had plagued it. Years passed, and life took on a semblance of normalcy. The house became my sanctuary, a place of solace and redemption. Yet, in quiet moments, I found myself wondering if I would ever encounter the crying girl again. Her memory lingered, a bittersweet reminder of the inexplicable bond forged between the living and the dead. As I stood in the tranquil living room, holding the keys that symbolized my triumph over the supernatural forces that once tormented the space, I couldn't shake the feeling that the story was not truly over. The echoes of the past lingered, leaving me to ponder the mysteries of the afterlife and the enduring connection between spirits and the living. And that was Every Night I Can Hear a Little Girl Crying in the Attic of My New Home, by Chronos 000. The title is longer, but I shortened it for, it's a long title. I like the story. I think it's quite interesting how it kind of really is a story of, like he keeps saying, redemption, and basically he helps the spirit be able to move on by getting rid of the evil landlord. Quite a funny little spin on a horror story, if you ask me. I kind of think that's kind of it. I sadly don't really know what else to say about it. I think the concept is fun. I thought it was quite an interesting little read, but I do feel like there could have been a little bit more substance there. That's just my personal opinion. I still thought the story was good. Don't get me wrong. I've enjoyed it, and I hope you have too. We'll see you for the next one. Take care.